The security guard looked at me like I'd just crawled out from under a rock. His eyes swept from my faded jeans to my old college sweatshirt, and I could practically see him calculating my net worth at about $12 and some pocket lint. He stepped forward, blocking my path to the Grand Meridian Hotel's main entrance with all the authority of someone who'd been doing this job for exactly 3 days. I told him I was here for the Wong Ashford engagement party, and the smirk that crossed his face could have curdled milk. He actually laughed, pointing his thick finger toward the side of the building where a small sign read, "Service Entrance." Apparently, the help needed to use the appropriate door. My name is Kinsley Wong. I'm 32 years old, and at that moment, standing in my deliberately casual clothes, I probably looked like I'd gotten lost on my way to deliver takeout. The irony wasn't lost on me, considering what I actually did for a living, but I kept my mouth shut. Sometimes the best revenge is served in courses, like a 5-star meal. Before I continue, please hit that like button and let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is there. Thank you. My sister Madison had called me 2 weeks ago with the enthusiasm of someone inviting you to their own execution. She'd made it crystal clear that I should try to look presentable for once, because her future in-laws, the Ashfords, were very particular people. She'd actually used air quotes over the phone. I could hear them in her voice. She also mentioned, so casually, that maybe I shouldn't mention my little online business thing because the Ashfords were old money and wouldn't understand internet jobs. The security guard was still staring at me, his radio crackling with importance. I could have shown him my ID, could have made one phone call that would have changed everything. But where was the fun in that? Instead, I smiled sweetly and headed toward the service entrance, my beat-up sneakers squeaking against the pavement. Just as I reached the side door, a familiar voice shrieked across the parking lot. Madison herself, resplendent in what looked like a dress that cost more than most people's monthly rent, came clicking across the asphalt in heels that definitely weren't made for walking. Her face was a masterpiece of confusion and barely concealed horror. She looked right at me, then through me, then at the security guard, who was explaining that he'd redirected the delivery person to the proper entrance. Madison actually giggled, that same nervous laugh she'd had since high school when she was embarrassed by association. She waved her manicured hand dismissively and said something about how these people always get confused about where they belong. These people, her own sister. I bit my tongue so hard I tasted copper and walked through that service entrance with my head held high. The kitchen was chaos, pure, beautiful chaos that smelled like garlic and expensive beef. Wellington, a sous chef, immediately mistook me for the replacement server they'd been expecting and shoved an apron into my hands before I could protest. The head chef, a mountain of a man named Philippe, who seemed to communicate entirely in French curse words and disappointed sighs, took one look at me and declared I was on shrimp duty. Within minutes, I was elbow deep in crustaceans, peeling and deveining like my life depended on it. The other kitchen staff barely noticed the new addition to their ranks. They were too busy gossiping about the disaster unfolding upstairs. Apparently, Madison had already sent 3 champagne deliveries back for not being champagne-colored enough, whatever that meant. The servers were taking bets on how many times she'd change her mind about the napkin arrangement. The current count was 6, and the party hadn't even officially started. I learned more about my sister in that kitchen than I had in the past 5 years of sporadic family dinners. She'd been terrorizing the staff for weeks with her demands, changing the menu 17 times and insisting that the flowers be flown in from Ecuador because local roses looked too pedestrian. One server mentioned she'd actually made the pastry chef cry over the engagement cake design. But the real tea, as the younger servers called it, was about the Ashfords. Old money, they said. So old it had practically turned to dust, Mrs. Ashford had arrived earlier to inspect the venue and spent 40 minutes explaining how their family had been hosting parties since before the hotel was even built. She'd name-dropped so many dead relatives, I thought we might need to set up a memorial table. The kitchen door burst open like someone had kicked it, and there stood Madison in all her bridezilla glory. Her face was the particular shade of red that meant someone, somewhere, had done something unforgivable, like breathing incorrectly. She stormed through the kitchen, her heels clicking like angry typewriter keys, demanding to know why the champagne wasn't properly chilled to exactly 37.5 degrees. Felipe tried to explain that the champagne was at the perfect serving temperature, but Madison wasn't interested in facts. She wanted what she wanted, and what she wanted was perfection that would impress the Ashfords. She swept past the prep station where I was wrist-deep in shrimp, close enough that I could smell her perfume, the same one she'd borrowed from my apartment 3 years ago and never returned. She didn't even glance my way. To her, I was just another invisible pair of hands making her perfect day possible. After she hurricaned her way back out, one of the servers muttered that the Ashfords were already upstairs telling anyone who'd listen that their son could have done better. The kid washing dishes laughed and said he'd overheard Mrs. Ashford in the bathroom on the phone, discussing how to convince her son to call off the engagement before it was too late. I kept peeling shrimp, but my mind was racing. The Ashfords trying to sabotage my sister's engagement, Madison being a terror to the staff. This was turning into quite the soap opera, and I hadn't even made it to the main event yet. I finished my shrimp duty, told Philippe I needed a bathroom break, and slipped out of the kitchen with my apron still on. The service elevator was empty, which was perfect because I needed a moment to myself. I pressed the button for the penthouse floor, not the party floor, but the one above it, the executive level, my level. 3 years ago, I'd bought the Grand Meridian Hotel chain, not just this hotel, all 17 properties across the country. The deal had been conducted through my holding company, K2 Enterprises, and I deliberately kept my personal name off most of the paperwork. It was cleaner that way, and it meant I could walk through my properties without being treated like the owner. You learn a lot about your business when people don't know you're the boss. The elevator opened to my private office suite, and I used my thumbprint to unlock the door. The space was everything the party downstairs wasn't. Quiet, minimalist, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. My assistant had left the weekly reports on my desk, but I wasn't interested in numbers right now. I was interested in the security monitors that showed every public area of the hotel. I flipped through the cameras until I found the ballroom. There they were, the Ashfords, in all their glory. Mrs. Ashford looked like she'd been vacuum-sealed into her dress, and her face had that peculiar tightness that suggested her plastic surgeon had been a bit enthusiastic with the Botox. She was holding court near the bar, surrounded by a group of women who all looked like they'd been ordered from the same country club catalog. The story of how I'd built this empire while my family thought I was struggling with a little online business was almost funny. In hindsight, Madison had been so proud of her marketing job at a mid-tier company, always quick to offer me career advice and job listings she'd found that might be more suitable for someone with my limited experience. Meanwhile, I'd been quietly building a hospitality empire, starting with one struggling hotel I'd bought with every penny of my savings and a loan that had kept me up at night for months. The renovation had been brutal, but I'd done a lot of the work myself, learning the business from the ground up. That hotel had led to another, then another, until I had a portfolio that would make those old money Ashfords weep into their trust funds. If you're still with me and enjoying this tale of family drama and hidden success, please take a quick second to subscribe to the channel and leave a comment. Your support helps more than you know, and trust me, the best part is yet to come. I zoomed in on one of the security cameras just in time to catch something interesting. Mrs. Ashford was having an intense conversation with someone from the catering staff, not Philippe, or anyone I recognized from the kitchen. She was pressing something into his hand that looked suspiciously like cash. The man nodded and scurried away toward the kitchen. Curious, I pulled up the footage from 5 minutes earlier and watched their entire interaction. The audio was muffled, but the body language was clear. Mrs. Ashford was giving instructions, pointing at various areas of the ballroom, and the man was nodding along like an eager puppy. This wasn't about champagne temperature or napkin arrangements. I made a quick call to my head of security, asking him to keep an eye on the situation but not to intervene yet. Then I changed back into my server's apron. If Mrs. Ashford wanted to play games at my hotel, in my house, well, she was about to learn that the house always wins. The security footage kept rolling as I watched Madison frantically trying to impress her future mother-in-law, adjusting her dress every time Mrs. Ashford looked her way, laughing too loudly at every terrible joke Mr. Ashford made about his golf game. It was painful to watch, like seeing someone trying to squeeze into shoes that were 3 sizes too small. Back in my server's uniform, I grabbed a tray of champagne glasses from the kitchen and headed into the ballroom. The transformation from the service areas to the party space was like stepping through a portal from Kansas to Oz. If Oz had been decorated by someone with too much money and not enough taste, Madison had gone for what I could only describe as Kardashian meets Downton Abbey. Crystal chandeliers competed with LED uplighting, and there were enough flowers to stock a botanical garden. The Ashfords stood near the center of it all, looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. Their son, Brett, because of course his name was Brett, stood beside them with the expression of a man being slowly strangled by his own bow tie. I circulated with my tray, invisible in that peculiar way service staff become at fancy parties. Rich people have this amazing ability to take things from your tray while looking right through you, as if the champagne just materialized in their hands through sheer force of will. Mrs. Ashford was holding forth about their family estate in Connecticut, explaining to anyone within earshot how they'd had to let go of some of the staff, because good help is just impossible to find these days. The irony of her saying this while taking a glass from my tray without even glancing at me was not lost. Her husband nodded along, though his eyes kept drifting to the nearest exit. Then I heard something that made me stop in my tracks. Mrs. Ashford was telling Madison about how they'd need to discuss the financial arrangements for the wedding, specifically how Madison's family would be contributing to their son's investment portfolio. She made it sound casual, but I'd negotiated enough business deals to recognize a shakedown when I heard one. Madison was nodding eagerly, promising that her family had resources and that her sister was a very successful investor who would definitely want to contribute to the union. I nearly dropped my tray. Madison was using me, the sister she'd directed to the service entrance, as her imaginary financial backing. Brett's brother, Chase, these names I swear, sidled up to me as I refilled my tray at the service station. He was the type of guy who thought his trust fund made him irresistible, with slicked back hair and a smile that had probably worked on 19-year-old Instagram models. He leaned in close, reeking of cologne and entitlement, and asked if I was working this party all night or if I got breaks. I told him I'd be working until the job was done, and he actually winked at me. Winked, like we were in some bad romantic comedy where the rich boy falls for the servant girl. He slipped what he probably thought was a subtle $100 bill onto my tray and told me to find him later if I wanted to make some real money. The bile rose in my throat, but I smiled and moved away, adding his proposition to my mental list of things that would make this evening even more interesting. As I circulated, I heard more and more pieces of the puzzle. The Ashfords were name-dropping connections they claimed to have, investment opportunities they were pursuing, properties they owned, but something felt off about it all, like they were trying too hard to establish their credentials. During a quiet moment, I slipped into the business center off the main ballroom and pulled out my phone. A few quick searches and some calls to my network revealed what I'd suspected. The Ashfords were broke. Not just a little cash poor, but drowning in debt, selling the family silver broke. Their estate had 3 mortgages on it. Their investment portfolio had been liquidated 2 years ago, and they had liens against them from multiple creditors. Suddenly, everything made sense. They weren't trying to stop the wedding because Madison wasn't good enough for them. They were desperate for it to happen because they thought Madison's family had money. The financial arrangements Mrs. Ashford mentioned weren't contributions. They were hoping for a bailout. The cosmic joke of it all almost made me laugh out loud. Here were the Ashfords, looking down their surgically enhanced noses at everyone, while secretly hoping my sister's imaginary wealthy family would save them from bankruptcy. And here was Madison, pretending to be something she wasn't, to impress people who were pretending even harder. I went back to serving champagne, but now I was really paying attention. Mrs. Ashford was getting bolder, mentioning to her circle of friends how Madison's family would be investing in some of Brett's ventures. Madison stood nearby, smiling and nodding, completely unaware that she was being set up as the golden goose in a con game. The party was in full swing now, the noise level rising with each round of drinks. The man Mrs. Ashford had bribed earlier was doing something suspicious near the sound system, and I watched him palm what looked like a USB drive. Whatever sabotage she'd planned was about to go down, and I needed to decide whether to let it play out or intervene. That's when I spotted my general manager, David, standing at the ballroom entrance with a concerned expression and a folder in his hand. He was scanning the crowd, looking for someone, and I had a pretty good idea what was in that folder. The Ashfords' check for the party had just bounced, and David was here to handle it discreetly. The evening was about to get very interesting. I slipped back into the business center and made a series of phone calls that would have made Madison's head spin if she knew about them. First, my CFO, who confirmed what I'd suspected about the Ashfords' financial situation. They were about 6 weeks away from losing their Connecticut estate to foreclosure. Second, my legal team, who started preparing documents that might come in handy later. Third, and most importantly, David, my general manager, who was still hovering at the ballroom entrance, like a worried father at a teenage party. I told David to give me 20 minutes before approaching anyone about the bounced check. He agreed, though I could hear the confusion in his voice. He knew something was up, but trusted me enough not to ask questions. That's why he was worth every penny of his 6-figure salary, which, incidentally, was probably more than the Ashfords had in all their accounts combined. Back in the ballroom, Madison had commandeered the microphone and was thanking everyone for coming to celebrate their love. She actually used the phrase, joining of two great families. And I watched Mrs. Ashford's face contort into what might have been a smile, if her face could still move that way. The Botox made it look more like she was trying to solve a complicated math problem. Madison went on about how grateful she was to have found Brett, how their families were so perfectly matched, and then, this was the kicker, she announced that her extremely successful investor sister was secretly there tonight, observing everything, and would be making a significant announcement about the wedding later. I nearly choked on my own spit. Madison was using me as a prop in her fantasy, not knowing I was standing 10 feet away holding a tray of crab cakes that no one was eating because Mrs. Ashford had loudly declared them pedestrian. The USB drive guy from earlier was definitely up to something. He'd plugged something into the sound system, and I recognized the setup. In about 5 minutes, whatever audio file Mrs. Ashford had given him would start playing based on the smirk on her face. It wasn't going to be wedding bells. I texted my head of security to download everything from the USB before it could play, then back up all our security footage from the last 2 hours. If Mrs. Ashford wanted to play dirty, she was about to learn that she'd picked the wrong hotel to do it in. Chase Ashford cornered me again near the service station, this time with his hand actually on my lower back, telling me about his cryptocurrency ventures and how he could change my life if I was nice to him. The fact that crypto had crashed 3 months ago and his ventures were probably worth less than the lint in my pocket made his proposition even more pathetic. I told him I needed to refill my tray and escaped before I did something that would definitely blow my cover, like explain to him exactly how many times over I could buy and sell his entire family. Philippe emerged from the kitchen looking like he'd just survived a war. Madison had apparently sent him a series of contradictory messages about the dinner service, first moving it up by 30 minutes, then back by 45, then to the original time but with a completely different menu. The kitchen staff was ready to mutiny, and I didn't blame them. I made an executive decision and told Philippe to serve dinner at the original time with the original menu. He looked at me skeptically. After all, I was just the shrimp girl who'd wandered in from the street. But something in my tone must have convinced him because he nodded and retreated to his kitchen kingdom. The security footage I'd requested was now on my phone, and it was even better than I'd hoped. Not only had Mrs. Ashford bribed someone to sabotage the party, but she'd also been caught on camera going through Madison's purse when my sister had left it at her table. She'd photographed something inside, probably Madison's ID or credit cards. the kind of information you'd need for a background check or credit report. David finally entered the ballroom, folder in hand, and began making his way through the crowd. The band was playing some generic jazz that all sounded the same. The musical equivalent of elevator wallpaper. I watched him approach the head table where both families were seated, the Ashfords looking regal in their borrowed finery, and Madison's parents looking like they'd rather be at home watching Jeopardy! David leaned in to speak quietly, probably asking for Ms. Wong to discuss an urgent matter. I saw Madison's face light up. She assumed he meant her, of course. She stood up, smoothing her dress, ready to handle whatever minor catastrophe had arisen. But David walked right past her. He kept walking, scanning the room, and I knew the moment had come. I set down my serving tray and started walking toward him. Madison was saying something about how he must be confused, that she was Ms. Wong, but David wasn't listening anymore. He'd spotted me. The look on Madison's face when David approached me in my stained server's apron with my hair pulled back in a messy bun, was worth more than all the hotels in my portfolio. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish that had just discovered air wasn't water. David handed me the folder with a professional nod and said loud enough for the nearby tables to hear, "Ms. Wong, we have a situation with the Ashford party payment. The check has been returned for insufficient funds." The silence that followed was so complete you could have heard a pin drop from space. Madison's face went from confused to mortified to angry in about 3 seconds flat. She started shrieking about how I was ruining her party with my pathetic attempts at humor, and that security needed to remove me immediately. That's when I did something I'd been wanting to do all evening. I untied my apron, folded it neatly, and handed it to a passing server. Then I turned to face the room and said in my best CEO voice, "I think there's been some confusion. I'm Kinsley Wong, and I own this hotel. In fact, I own all 17 Grand Meridian hotels." The gasps were audible. Mrs. Ashford's face tried to express shock, but the Botox held firm. Madison looked like someone had just told her Santa Claus was real, but he'd been avoiding her house on purpose. But I wasn't done. I pulled out my phone and connected it to the ballroom's AV system, a little override feature I'd had installed in all my properties. On the massive screens that had been showing romantic photos of Madison and Brett, security footage began to play. There was Mrs. Ashford, clear as day, bribing the staff member. There she was again, going through Madison's purse. And then the audio file she'd tried to plant started playing through my phone. It was a recording of Madison from some previous conversation, edited to make it sound like she was trash-talking the Ashfords and bragging about taking their money. The room erupted. Mrs. Ashford was trying to explain, but the evidence was literally larger than life on the screens around her. Mr. Ashford looked like he wanted to disappear into his chair. Brett stood frozen, looking between his mother and Madison like he was watching a tennis match in hell. Chase, the cryptocurrency Casanova, tried to slink away, but I wasn't letting him off that easy. "Oh, Chase," I called out sweetly, "you still want to discuss that business proposition? The one where you offered to change my life if I was nice to you? I have that on recording, too, if anyone's interested." His face went from red to white to green, a Christmas color palette of embarrassment. Madison found her voice, and it was not happy. She accused me of sabotaging her engagement, of being jealous, of deliberately humiliating her in front of everyone. She actually used the phrase, "You've always been jealous of me," which would have been funny if it wasn't so sad. I let her rant for a full minute. It was actually impressive how many accusations she could fit into such a short time. Then I held up the folder David had given me. "The Ashfords' check bounced," I said simply. "They don't have the money to pay for this party. In fact, according to public records, they don't have money for much of anything. 3 mortgages on the family estate, Brett's trust fund emptied 2 years ago, and about 15 maxed-out credit cards between them." Mrs. Ashford tried to protest, but I pulled up the public records on my phone and projected those onto the screens too. Property records, court documents, all publicly available information that anyone could find if they bothered to look. "You were planning to use Madison for money," I continued. "Money you thought her family had. Money you thought I had. Well, you were half right, I do have money. But you're not getting a penny of it. I turned to Madison, who had gone from angry to devastated. "They've been playing you from the start. Mrs. Ashford hired a private investigator to look into our family. I have the invoice right here. Charged to a credit card that's currently over its limit, by the way." The room was in chaos. Guests were whispering, some were openly recording on their phones, and the Ashfords looked like they were melting into their chairs. But the best part was yet to come. "Now," I announced, "let's discuss the bill for tonight's party. It's $47,000, not including gratuity. Since the Ashfords can't pay, and since this is technically their son's engagement party, I have two options. 1, I call the police and report theft of services. Or 2, the Ashfords can leave now, quietly, and I'll absorb the cost as a wedding gift to my sister, assuming there's still going to be a wedding." Brett finally spoke up and surprised everyone. He turned to Madison with tears in his eyes and said he had no idea about his parents' schemes. He admitted he knew they were broke, but thought they were handling it with dignity, not by trying to con his fiancé's family. Madison was crying now, her carefully applied makeup running in designer streams down her face. She looked at me, really looked at me for the first time all evening, and whispered, "You own this place, all of them." But I thought, "Your online thing." My online thing was the platform I built to manage hotel bookings, I explained. It became so successful that I used the profits to buy my first hotel, then another, then the entire chain I tried to tell you multiple times, but you always changed the subject when I talked about work. The Ashfords were trying to leave quietly, but I had one more card to play. Mrs. Ashford, the gentleman you bribed to sabotage the party, he's actually one of my security team. We have your entire conversation on tape, including the part where you discussed ruining the party to make Madison look bad so Brett would call off the engagement. Would you like me to play that for everyone? She shook her head violently, grabbed her husband's arm, and practically ran for the exit. Chase tried to follow, but not before muttering something about how this was all a misunderstanding. The security guard from the beginning of the evening, remember him, was standing by the door, and the look of horror on his face when he realized who I was almost made me feel bad. Almost. The ballroom cleared out pretty quickly after that. Nothing kills a party like finding out the hosts are broke, and the bride's sister owns the venue. Madison and Brett sat at their table, surrounded by expensive centerpieces and broken dreams. My parents, who'd been silent through the entire ordeal, were staring at me like I'd just announced I was from Mars. Madison finally stood up and walked over to me. Her shoulders were shaking and I expected another tirade. Instead, she threw her arms around me and sobbed into my shoulder, completely ruining my old college sweatshirt with her makeup. "I'm so sorry," she kept saying. "I'm so sorry. I didn't recognize you. I didn't want to see you. I was so obsessed with being something I'm not that I couldn't see who you really were." I hugged her back because despite everything, she was still my sister. "You want to know the really sad part?" I said. "If you just asked, I would have helped. No questions asked. That's what family does." Brett approached us nervously, like he was afraid I might have him thrown out too, but I could see he was genuinely devastated by his parents' behavior. He apologized profusely, said he understood if Madison wanted to call off the engagement, and even offered to work to pay back the party costs. Madison looked at him, then at me, then back at him. "Your parents are terrible," she said bluntly, like spectacularly terrible. "But you stood up to them, and you're nothing like them. So if you still want to marry me, knowing that I'm not rich, that I've been pretending to be someone I'm not, and that I've been horrible to my amazing sister, then yes." It wasn't the most romantic proposal acceptance I'd ever seen, but it was honest, which was more than anyone had been all evening. I offered Madison a job the next day, not out of pity, but because anyone who could organize an event with that many moving pieces, even if it was a disaster, had skills she needed to learn humility and how to treat people with respect. And what better place than starting from the bottom in the hotel industry? "You're going to work in every department," I told her. "Kitchen, housekeeping, front desk, everything. You're going to learn this business from the ground up, and you're going to apologize to every staff member you terrorized today." She nodded eagerly, mascara still streaming down her face. Brett said he wanted to work too, to earn his own money for once instead of living off his family's reputation. I told him I'd find him something in our accounting department. Turns out he had a degree in finance his parents had never let him use. The security guard from the beginning found me as I was leaving. He apologized about 17 times in 30 seconds, which might have been a record. I told him he was just doing his job, but maybe next time he should look at people's faces instead of their clothes. He nodded so hard I thought his head might fall off. Philippe and the kitchen staff got the rest of the night off with full pay, plus a bonus for dealing with Madison's chaos. The party food got donated to a local shelter, and the flowers went to a nearby nursing home. Nothing went to waste except the Ashfords' dignity, but they didn't have much of that to begin with. A week later, Madison started her first shift in housekeeping at 5 a.m. She texted me a picture of herself in the uniform, smiling despite the early hour. "Day one of learning who I really am," she wrote. Brett was in the accounting department, discovering he was actually good at something other than spending money. He and Madison moved into a small apartment, paying their own rent for the first time. They seemed happier than I'd ever seen them. As for the Ashfords, they lost their estate 2 months later. Mrs. Ashford tried to sue me for defamation. But it's hard to claim defamation when everything said about you is true, and on video they moved to Florida, where they're probably trying to con other unsuspecting families with eligible daughters. The security footage from that night became legendary among my staff. Someone set it to music, Gold Digger, naturally, and it became our unofficial training video for how not to treat people. Madison and Brett got married a year later in a simple ceremony in my hotel's garden. No pretense, no lies, just two people who'd learned the hard way that being yourself is always better than pretending to be someone you're not. Madison insisted on using the service entrance for her bridal entrance. She said it was where her real journey began.
My name is Mary Jane, and I'm 26 years old. My parents thought they were being clever. Little did they know their daughter would end up needing superhero strength to survive what they put me through. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Before I continue, I want to thank you for listening to my story. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is. That April evening started like any other. Emma, my younger sister, was sprawled across the living room couch, her perfectly manicured nails tapping away at her phone. At 24, she'd mastered the art of doing nothing while looking incredibly busy. Her blonde highlights caught the light as she squealed about her acceptance to the Fashion Institute in New York. Can you believe it, Mary Jane? NYC, where dreams come true. She didn't look up from her screen. Oh wait, you wouldn't understand. Community college isn't exactly the same vibe. I bit my tongue, like always. What Emma didn't know, what none of them knew, was that my stupid little Etsy shop was pulling in more monthly than Dad's accounting job. But I'd learned long ago that success without their approval meant nothing in this house. Then Mom called Emma to the kitchen, and curiosity got the better of me. That's when I heard it, the conversation that shattered whatever illusions I had left about my place in this family. $35,000? Emma's voice was pure entitlement. That's it? Sweetie, that's just for the first year. Mom cooed. We've been saving since you were little. Your college fund should cover all 4 years, plus living expenses. My stomach dropped. My college fund, the one they told me didn't exist when I'd asked 3 years ago. What about Mary Jane? Emma asked, though her tone suggested she didn't really care. That's when Mom said those words. Fight for your life. Like I was some wild animal who needed to prove they deserved basic survival. Dad's next words were worse. She's always been difficult. Maybe struggling will teach her gratitude. Emma, you're our investment in the future. Mary Jane, well, she'll figure it out, or she won't. I stood frozen, my hand on the wall to steady myself. 26 years of being the spare child, the backup plan nobody wanted to execute, crystallized in that moment. Every Christmas where Emma's gifts towered over mine. Every school play where they missed my performance but recorded hers. Every time they introduced us. Our daughter Emma, and this is also Mary Jane. I walked into the kitchen. 3 pairs of eyes turned to me. Emma's embarrassed. Mom's defiant. Dad's dismissive. The money you're giving Emma, I said quietly. Was that my college fund? Mom had the audacity to look offended. Were you eavesdropping? Answer the question. Dad stood up, his accountant's posture rigid with authority. That money is going where it's needed. Emma has potential. She has dreams. You have what? That little craft project you do online? That little craft project made $60,000 last year. The silence was deafening. Emma's phone actually stopped pinging. Dad laughed. Actually laughed. Right. Selling friendship bracelets to teenagers? Customized jewelry to adults with disposable income. I pulled out my phone, showed them my business dashboard. Last month alone, $8,000 in revenue. Mom snatched my phone, her face cycling through confusion, disbelief, and then anger. You've been hiding this from us? Like you hid my college fund? Emma stood up, her voice shrill. That money is mine. I earned it by actually having talent. What talent, Emma? Instagram filters? She lunged at me, but Dad caught her arm. Mary Jane, you need to leave. Now. I live here. Not anymore. His voice was stone. You want to pretend you're some entrepreneur? Fine. Entrepreneurs don't live with their parents. Take your lies and go. Richard! Mom gasped, but her protest was weak. She just admitted to hiding thousands of dollars while living here rent-free. He continued. That's theft. The absurdity almost made me laugh. Theft? You stole my future and gave it to her. We gave it to someone who deserved it, he said simply. You don't deserve any help. You never have. So go fight for your life, like you apparently have been. I looked at each of them. Mom, avoiding my eyes. Dad, solid in his conviction. Emma, already texting again, probably updating her followers about her New York City adventure. Fine, I said. But remember this moment. Remember that you chose this. 2 hours later, I sat on a Greyhound bus with $247 in my wallet and a duffel bag of essentials. My phone buzzed with Emma's Instagram story. NYCBOUND. First class upgrade thanks to the best parents ever. I turned off my phone. The elderly woman next to me noticed my shaking hands. Bad night, honey. My family just kicked me out for being too successful. She laughed, thinking I was joking. Then she saw my face. Oh, sweetie, you're serious. They gave my college fund to my sister, $35,000, then threw me out when I told them I didn't need it. She patted my hand with her weathered one. Let me tell you something, dear. I'm 78 years old. Know what I learned? The best revenge isn't proving them wrong. It's proving yourself right. The bus rolled through the night while Emma posted champagne selfies at 30,000 feet. She was heading to a $4,500 per month Manhattan penthouse apartment. I was heading to wherever $247 would take me. I got off in a small town 3 hours away, partly because I needed to think, mostly because I had 16 online orders to fulfill and the bus Wi-Fi had died. The 24-hour diner glowed like a lighthouse for the lost. I ordered coffee. $2.50, leaving me $244.50, and set up my laptop in the corner booth. You planning to stay all night? The waitress asked. Her name tag said Dolores. I'll keep ordering coffee. She studied me. Saw something familiar maybe. Honey, you running from something or toward something? Both? That's the only way to run that matters. You got somewhere to sleep? I'll figure it out. She walked away, came back with a piece of pie. On the house. Can't build an empire on an empty stomach. While Emma was posting photos of her penthouse view, can you believe this is my actual life now? I was confirming shipping addresses, processing payments, and messaging customers about delays. Sorry for the late response. I typed to one. I'm currently relocating my operation. Not a lie. Just not the whole truth. At 3 a.m., Dolores' husband Frank showed up to start the morning prep. They whispered in the kitchen, and then Dolores came back. Storage room in the back has a cot. Previous owner used to nap there. $100 a week, but you help with the breakfast rush. Deal? Why would you? Because I was you once. 23 pregnant, family said I was ruining my life. 40 years later, we own 6 diners. Started with washing dishes for tips. She jerked her thumb at Frank. That dishwasher boy became my business partner. Turned out better than my family's plan of marrying me off to a dentist. I managed my first real smile in hours. Deal. That night, while Emma explored her walk-in closet, I lay on a cot that smelled like coffee and possibility. She posted about her silk sheets. I wrapped myself in a moving blanket that Frank found in his truck. She ordered sushi from Nobu. I ate leftover pie. But here's the thing about parallel lives. They only look parallel from a distance. Up close, one's ascending while the other's just pretending. I know, because at 4 a.m. Emma posted and deleted something quickly, but I saw it. Why does everyone here have trust funds? How am I supposed to compete? The first crack in her facade. I wondered how long before the whole thing shattered. By October, my morning routine was sacred. 4 a.m. inventory check in the storage room I now called home. 5 a.m. breakfast prep with Frank. 6 a.m. opening with Dolores. Then 9 hours of pure hustle until the dinner crowd died down. If you're still listening, this is where the story gets interesting. Real quick, if my journey resonates with you, hit that subscribe button. Your support means everything to a girl who started with nothing but spite and Wi-Fi connection. My phone became my lifeline to two different worlds. In one, I was building an empire. Custom jewelry had evolved into curated gift boxes, then subscription services. Perfectly Imperfect was now a brand, not just a desperate reframe of damaged inventory. 8,000 monthly became 15, then 20. I hired my first virtual assistant, Stacy from the Philippines, who honestly worked harder than I did. In the other world, accessed through Instagram, Emma's life looked like a magazine spread. Fashion week parties, brunches in Soho, study sessions that looked suspiciously like photo shoots. Our parents commented on everything. Our star, so proud, living your best life. But I noticed things. The same Chanel bag in every photo. Borrowed, probably. Tag locations at exclusive restaurants, but only appetizer photos. Study group pics where everyone else had textbooks, but Emma just had her phone. The real tell? Her roommate Brittany's stories. Emma in the background, always on her phone during lectures. Emma passed out at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. Emma crying in the bathroom. Quickly deleted, but I saw it. Your sister's struggling, Stacy mentioned during our morning call. She'd been helping me track market trends and stumbled across Emma's Depop account. She's selling her clothes, designer stuff. Maybe she just wants new things. Maybe. But listing your textbooks in week 8 of the semester? That afternoon, while packaging orders, I did something stupid. I checked my parents' Facebook. There it was. So proud of Emma. First semester dean's list. NYC was the right choice. I knew Emma's grades weren't posted yet, which meant she was lying to them. That night, curiosity got the better of me. I created a fake Instagram and went deeper into Emma's world. The comments on her posts were telling, "Girl, where were you in fashion history? Professor asked about you again. Your part of the project is due tomorrow." Her responses were always the same. "Family emergency. So sick. We'll make it up to you." But her tagged photos told different stories. Clubbing on exam night, shopping during group projects, and always spending. Then I found something that stopped me cold. A photo Brittany posted and forgot to tag carefully. Emma at an ATM, clearly distressed. Card declined. Caption: when your parents forget to reload your card. The comments were brutal. Apparently, this was the third time that month. Meanwhile, my phone buzzed with notification after notification. Order placed, payment received, 5-star review. Stacy had started calling me boss lady, and I'd incorporated as an LLC. My bank account hit 6 figures for the first time. $100,847.23. I screenshot it, then deleted it. No one to share it with anyway. That's when Emma posted her first desperate move. Anyone know about paid internships? Unpaid isn't working for my schedule. The responses were predictable. Fashion internships didn't pay. Everyone knew that. But Emma kept pushing, kept asking. Then radio silence for 3 days. When she resurfaced, it was with a triumphant announcement. Got an amazing position at a boutique PR firm. Living my dream. Our parents exploded with pride. But I recognized the building in her selfie. Not a PR firm. A Forever 21 in Times Square. January hit different when you're building an empire from a diner storage room. My first year anniversary of being disowned coincided with my biggest breakthrough yet. Boss lady, you sitting down? Stacy's voice crackled through our morning call. I'm literally packaging orders on the floor, so technically, the buyer from Nordstrom wants to feature us. The actual Nordstrom. I dropped my tape gun. It clattered across the concrete floor, and Frank poked his head in. You okay, MJ? I think I just got into Nordstrom. The department store? His eyes widened. That's like the Yankees calling up a minor league player. It was exactly like that. Except this minor league player had been training in secret, while everyone watched someone else strike out. The irony wasn't lost on me. Emma was supposedly interning at high-fashion houses, but working retail at Forever 21. Meanwhile, I was running operations from a storage room and getting into luxury department stores. The Nordstrom deal changed everything. Suddenly, I needed real inventory, real packaging, real employees. The storage room wouldn't cut it anymore. There's a warehouse for rent, Dolores mentioned over morning prep. Owner owes me a favor. Mike could work out a deal. I can't afford. Sweet girl, you got Nordstrom money coming. You can afford it. She was right. The numbers made my head spin. One Nordstrom order equaled 3 months of my current revenue. I signed the lease with shaking hands, then hired 3 local women who needed flexible work. One was going through a divorce, another had kids in school, the third was retired and bored. They became my lifelines. Meanwhile, Emma's social media told a different story. The fashion posts became fewer, replaced with outfit of the day shots that were just different angles of the same 3 outfits. She stopped tagging restaurants, started posting more study nights that looked suspiciously like her bedroom. Then came the post that made me spit out my coffee. So excited to be working with emerging designers. The photo showed my products, MY products, in the store where she worked. She didn't recognize them. How could she? The girl who said my craft project was embarrassing was now arranging my jewelry displays, folding my scarves, recommending my gift sets to customers. The universe had a sense of humor darker than my coffee. Should we tell her? Stacy asked when I shared the photo. No, let her sell them. She's probably making commission on her sister's success without knowing it. But the real kicker came in March. Emma posted about her amazing fashion internship at Vogue. Our parents were beside themselves with pride. The comments flooded in. OMG VOGUE. Living the dream. Anna Winter better watch out. I knew better. The geotag she forgot to turn off showed Forever 21. The Vogue badge was from a tourist photo op. The desk selfie was in a stockroom, not an office. She was creating an elaborate fiction while I was building an empire nobody knew about. We were both lying to our parents. She about failure, me about success. The difference? My lies protected me. Hers were destroying her. Late one night, unable to sleep, I did something I shouldn't have. I used my business account to order something from the store where Emma worked, selecting in-store pickup. Not to see her. God, not that. But to see if she'd recognize my company name. The confirmation email came with a note. Personal shopper Emma will prepare your order. My sister would be packaging my products to send to me. The irony was so thick I could have cut it with the tape gun I'd finally replaced with an automatic system. But then Stacy forwarded me something that changed the game. Boss lady, you need to see this. It was a screenshot from a sugar daddy website. Emma's profile, under a fake name, but definitely her photos. Fashion student seeking generous mentor for mutual beneficial arrangement. My successful sister, our parents' golden child, selling herself to maintain the lie. I stared at that profile for an hour. Part of me wanted to feel vindicated. She got everything handed to her and still failed. But mostly, I felt sad. We were both fighting for our lives. She just didn't know she was losing. Year 2 started with me signing a lease on my first real apartment. Not fancy, a 1-bedroom in a decent neighborhood. But it had something the storage room didn't: dignity. Frank and Dolores threw me a going-away party at the diner, complete with a cake that said CEO in training. I ugly cried into the frosting. You'll still visit, right? Dolores asked, hugging me tight. Every Sunday, promise. My business had evolved into something I barely recognized. 20 employees, a legitimate warehouse, 3 product lines, and revenue that made my dad's annual salary look like pocket change. We were in Nordstrom, Bloomingdale's, and had just landed Saks Fifth Avenue. The universe kept its twisted sense of humor, though. Our newest retail partner, the exact Forever 21 where Emma worked. My products would be in her store, under her nose, every single day. Boss lady, there's something else, Stacy said during our morning call. The store manager at that Forever 21 wants you to do a personal appearance. Meet the designer event. When? Next Thursday, 3 to 5 p.m. I checked Emma's Instagram. She'd be working that shift. She always posted her Thursday outfit photos at 2:45 p.m. like clockwork. Tell them I'm unavailable. Founder's privacy policy. You sure? It's good money. Some things are worth more than money, Stacy. But Emma's posts were becoming concerning. The fake Vogue internship had evolved into an entire fictional life. She posted about Fashion Week experiences she couldn't have had, meetings with designers who didn't know she existed, and projects that only lived in her imagination. Our parents ate it up. Their Facebook was a shrine to Emma's fake achievements. Our daughter rubbing shoulders with fashion elite. So proud of our NYC success story. Emma making connections that will last a lifetime. The comments from relatives were worse. Mary Jane could learn from her sister. Whatever happened to the other one? Glad one of them turned out right. If only they knew the other one just hit her first million in revenue. Then came the message that changed everything. It was from Brittany, Emma's ex-roommate. Through my business Instagram. Are you Mary Jane, Emma's sister? I need to talk to you. We video called that night. Brittany looked exhausted. I moved out 3 months ago, she started. I couldn't watch anymore. Your sister? She's in trouble. What kind of trouble? The lying is pathological now. She tells everyone she has this trust fund, that she's just waiting for it to clear. She owes me 3 months' rent. She owes our other roommate 6. She got evicted from the penthouse. She's in Queens now with some sketchy people she met on Craigslist. What about school? Brittany laughed bitterly. She hasn't been to class since October. Failed out, officially, but keeps showing up for the social events. Security had to escort her out of the spring gala because she wasn't enrolled anymore. My chest tightened. Do our parents know? She sends them fake grade reports, photoshopped screenshots, even made a fake dean's letter congratulating her. Brittany paused. Look, I'm not trying to hurt her, but she owes a lot of people money. And the sugar daddy thing? That went bad. The guy found out she was lying about being in fashion school. He's threatening to sue for fraud. After we hung up, I sat in my apartment, my earned apartment, and felt the weight of knowledge. Emma wasn't just failing, she was imploding. That weekend, I did something I swore I wouldn't. I hired a private investigator, not to hurt her, but to know the full truth. What came back was worse than I imagined. Emma owed $80,000 across 17 credit cards. She'd taken out 3 personal loans using fake employment verification from her Vogue internship. She was behind 6 months on her Queen's rent. Her sugar daddy had filed a police report for theft. She'd stolen his watch and sold it. But the worst part? She'd created a fake Instagram for me. In her fictional world, I was homeless, drug addicted, and had called begging her for money. She'd posted screenshots of fake text conversations where I supposedly said things like, "You were always the smart one," and "I should have listened to mom and dad." She was writing fan fiction where she was the hero and I was the cautionary tale. By year 3, I should have been celebrating. Featured in Forbes 30 Under 30, business valuation at $10 million. 150 employees across 3 states. The American dream personified. Instead, I was reading the private investigator's latest report while sipping wine in my new house. Yes, the $2 million one in the Hollywood Hills. Every American woman over 55 knows that zip code means something. It means you've made it. Your sister's been arrested, the investigator said over the phone. Shoplifting from her own workplace? They dropped charges, but she's fired. From Forever 21? Yes, she apparently tried to steal inventory to sell online. Got caught loading a suitcase in the stockroom. The irony was excruciating. She was stealing to sell what I was selling legitimately. We'd both become entrepreneurs. One legally, one desperately. Emma's Instagram had gone dark for 3 weeks. When she returned, it was with a carefully crafted lie, taking a social media break to focus on my final year. Vogue wants me full-time after graduation. The comments from our parents. So proud. Our CEO in training. Success looks good on you. Meanwhile, I was doing a virtual interview with Bloomberg. The journalist asked about my family, and I gave my practiced answer. I'm focused on the family I'm building through my company. Every employee is family to me. No support from parents or siblings, she pressed. Success is sweeter when you earn it solo, I said, smiling through the sting. The interview went live the next day. 2 million views in 48 hours. The comments section exploded with women sharing their own stories of family betrayal and solo success. I'd accidentally become the poster child for abandoned daughters who thrived. That's when Peter reached out. Yes, that Peter reference. Peter Park, not Parker, but close enough for comic effect. He was another entrepreneur, ran a tech startup, and had seen my interview. Your story resonated, he said over coffee. My parents disowned me for dropping out of med school to code. Now my app just sold for $30 million. We started dating. It was nice having someone who understood that success born from spite hits different than success born from support. But the investigator kept sending updates. Emma had moved again. Couch surfing now. She'd created elaborate fake photos for our parents' graduation announcement. Used stock photos from an actual fashion show, photoshopped herself in. The announcement went out to 200 relatives. Our daughter Emma, Fashion Institute graduate, starting at Vogue this fall. I was CC'd on the email. Our parents' first contact in 3 years, and it was accidental. That night, Peter found me crying in my home office, the one with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking LA. What if I just helped her? I asked. Anonymously, would she learn anything? Did I need to learn by suffering? He held me while I sobbed. You didn't suffer because you needed to learn. You suffered because they were cruel. There's a difference. It was a Thursday in November. 3.5 years since that night I'd run away with $247. The Santa Ana winds were brutal, making everyone irritable and anxious. I was in my home office on a Bloomberg video call about taking the company public. The valuation is conservative at $15 million, the analyst was saying, with your growth trajectory. That's when I saw it through my window. A beat-up Honda Civic had broken down on my street. The passenger was getting out, and even from a distance, that blonde hair was unmistakable. Emma, my sister, was standing in front of my house in designer knockoffs and desperation, having no idea whose house it was. Can we continue this later? I told the analyst. Something's come up. I watched from the window as Emma walked around the car to the driver's side. Her boyfriend probably, skinny guy, neck tattoos, definitely the I'm gonna be a famous DJ type. Their car was blocking my driveway. Then I saw the moment it clicked for her, my custom rose gold Tesla in the driveway. I'd posted about it once on my business account. She stood frozen, staring at it, then at the house, then at the small bronze plaque by the door that said MJ Enterprises. Her phone was out immediately. I could see her scrolling frantically, probably Googling my company. Then she looked up and saw me in the window. Our eyes met for the first time in 3.5 years. She didn't wave, didn't smile, just pulled out her phone and made a call. Even from inside, I could hear her wailing. Dad! Dad! She was sobbing so hard her boyfriend got out to check on her. I'm at her house. Mary Jane, she has a fucking mansion. I watched my father's golden child collapse on my manicured lawn, screaming into her phone about the injustice of my success. How does she have this? You said she was nothing. You said she'd fail. Dad, it's not fair. The boyfriend tried to calm her down. Clearly embarrassed as my neighbors started to notice. This was a nice street. People didn't scream on lawns here. My phone rang. Unknown number, but I knew. Hello, Dad. Silence. Then, is Emma at your house? She's on my lawn, technically. Your house? Yes. How? I fought for my life. Like you told me to. He hung up, but Emma was still wailing, now lying dramatically on my grass like a teenager who'd been told no. The boyfriend was trying to physically lift her. 20 minutes later, a Lincoln Town car pulled up. My parents. They'd driven 3 hours at dangerous speeds to get here. My mother got out first, aged considerably since I'd last seen her. She looked at the house, at the Tesla, at Emma still sobbing, then at me standing in the doorway I'd opened. Mary Jane? Like she wasn't sure it was me. Hello, Mom. Dad was Googling frantically on his phone. I watched his face as he found the Forbes article, the Bloomberg interview, the company valuation. His thumb kept scrolling, his expression evolving from confusion to disbelief to something that looked like fear. 15 million, he said faintly. Conservative estimate. Emma had finally stood up, grass stains on her knockoff designer dress. It's not fair. I was the one who went to fashion school. Did you, though? I asked calmly. Everyone froze. What's that supposed to mean? Mom asked. I pulled out my phone, pulled up the investigator's report. Failed out October of freshman year, never went back, been lying for 3 years. Working retail, not at Vogue. 80,000 in debt, currently couch surfing because she got evicted. Again. Emma's face went white. How do you... The same way I know about the sugar daddy website, the arrest for shoplifting, the fake Instagram you made of me being homeless. I looked at our parents. did you enjoy those? The fake texts where I supposedly begged her for drug money? We all stood there on my lawn like a bizarre family portrait. Success and failure, truth and lies. All the chickens coming home to a $2 million roost. You've been spying on me? Emma shrieked. You've been pretending I'm a homeless drug addict for internet sympathy. I needed something. They kept asking about you. So you chose character assassination? Dad finally found his voice. You hired someone to stalk your sister? No, I hired someone to make sure my sister wasn't dead. Because despite everything, I apparently still give a damn. I turned to Emma. $80,000 in debt. How is that even possible? She crumbled. Right there on my lawn, my golden child sister crumbled into the truth. I couldn't do it, okay? Everyone at fashion school was rich. Actually rich. They had connections, real designers as parents, summer homes in the Hamptons. I was nobody. I tried to keep up. Tried to fake it till I made it, but you can't fake talent, I said. Not cruelly, just factually. You don't understand. You were never supposed to succeed. You were the failure, the cautionary tale. I was the star. Based on what? I genuinely wanted to know. What made you the star and me the failure? She couldn't answer. Neither could our parents. Here's what's going to happen, I said. The CEO and me taking over. Emma, you're going to accept a job at my company. Entry level, $60,000 a year plus benefits. You'll work in fulfillment to start. Learn the actual business. The salary should let you handle your debt in 3 years if you live modestly. I'm not working for you. Then enjoy bankruptcy and potential fraud charges. Your choice. Mom stepped forward. Mary Jane, family helps family. Stop. I held up my hand. Family helps family. Where was that philosophy when you gave her my college fund? When you kicked me out with nothing? When you changed the locks and blocked my number? You were difficult, Dad protested. Always fighting us. I was different. There's a distinction. I looked at each of them. You had 2 daughters. One who did everything you asked, and one who did everything her own way. You decided obedience was worth investing in, and independence was worth discarding. And look how that turned out, Peter said, appearing beside me. I hadn't heard him pull up. Your investment is bankrupt. Your discard is a millionaire. Emma looked between us. You're dating someone named Peter? Like Spider-Man? Like Spider-Man, I confirmed. Turns out Mary Jane does get her Peter. Just had to build my own empire first. Dad was still scrolling through articles about my company. This says you employ over 100 people. 153. Mostly women who needed flexible work. Single moms, recent divorces, retirees. People society wrote off. I paused. Like you wrote me off. We never meant. You literally told me I didn't deserve help, that I had to fight for my life. So I did, and I won. Emma's boyfriend had been silent this whole time, but now he spoke up. Yo, Em, you told me your sister was a junkie. She lied about a lot of things, I said, but she's still my sister, which is why I'm offering her a job instead of a restraining order. I'll take it, Emma said quietly. What? Our parents said in unison. I'll take the job. I can't do this anymore. The lying, the running, the pretending. She really looked at me for the first time in years. You actually made it. So can you. Just not the way you thought. Mom was crying now. We destroyed our family. No, I corrected. You made a choice. You chose your favorite. It just turned out your favorite couldn't carry the weight of your expectations, and your spare became self-sufficient out of spite. Can you forgive us? Dad asked. Forgiveness isn't a light switch, it's a dimmer. Right now you're at about 15%. Emma taking this job and succeeding, that might get you to 30. Actually acknowledging what you did, maybe 50. But Fulbright? That's years away, if ever. Peter squeezed my hand, a reminder that I had built my own family now. The job starts Monday, I told Emma. Stacy will send you details. Don't be late. I don't do nepotism. Even reverse nepotism? She tried to joke, especially that. As they all stood to leave, Mom turned back. The woman you became, would you have become her if we'd supported you? I thought about it. Really thought about it? No, I became her because you didn't. But that doesn't make what you did right. It just makes what I did remarkable. They left in their separate cars, parents in their Lincoln, Emma in the broken Honda. I watched from my doorway, the California sun setting behind them, painting everything gold. You okay? Peter asked. You know what the ironic part is? If they'd split that $35,000 between us, Emma probably would have graduated and I still would have built this company. We both could have won, but then you wouldn't have this story. True. And what a story it is. Later that night, I posted on my business Instagram for the first time about my personal journey. No details about family. Just 3 years ago, I started with $247 in spite. Today, we're valued at $15 million. To everyone who was told they don't deserve help, you don't need their help. You have yourself. That's enough. It went viral. 40 million views. 20,000 comments from women who'd been the spare child, the discarded one, the one who didn't deserve help. Emma started that Monday. She was 10 minutes early. She's still working for me now 2 years later. She's good at it. Turns out when you remove the pressure of being perfect, people can actually grow. She paid off half her debt, lives in a modest apartment, and hasn't posted on Instagram in a year. Our parents? They visit sometimes. It's awkward sitting in my dining room that costs more than their house, being served by the daughter they threw away. But we're trying. 15% became 30, 30 became 50. Some days, when mom helps Emma understand a particularly difficult customer, or when dad admits he was wrong about my craft project, we hit 60%. But the best part? Every month, I fund a scholarship for a young woman whose family told her she doesn't deserve help. Full ride, no strings, just a note that says, "You deserve everything. Go fight for your life." Because that's what they never understood. When you tell someone to fight for their life, sometimes they win. And when they win without you, they owe you nothing, not even forgiveness. Though I'm working on it at my own pace, in my own mansion, with my own Peter Parker, my chosen family of employees, and a sister who finally learned that being real beats being perfect every time. Karma isn't always instant, but when it comes with interest. And business? Business is good.